Hello Reddit. I'm a survivor of a school shooting. Ask me anything. The school's name is STEM Highlands Ranch. The shooting happened about 3 months ago on the 7th of May. I wanted to host this AMA just to show people what it is really like to go through a shooting like this from the perspective of a student. What was the reaction of the school after this? Any new security measures? Now we have an SRO. He's a sheriff from the local police department. Before we only had private security. The school also has much more support programs than before, like the school hired a few therapists to work with the counselors to help students. I guess I have 3 questions. By the time you knew about it, were you still in danger, or was it done? Did you hear about it, or actually hear the shots when it was happening? I guess the question is how did you realize you were actually inside this nightmare? Well, I heard the first 4 to 5 shots. At the time I didn't think it was a shooting. I really realized that it was a shooting when the SWAT arrived. I could clearly hear them through the walls. They were yelling at one of the shooters and arresting them. How long after the shooting did the classes start? And how were school days after the shooting? We started again about 2 weeks after the shooting. It was almost the end of the year anyway, so we just went back for 3 days. The days after the shooting were pretty crap overall. One of my best friends was shot in the leg, so it was stressful as heck. She is doing much better now, by the way. I think I didn't sleep for like 2 days after the shooting just cause of anxiety and other things. The school also hired therapists that kids and teachers could talk to if they really needed it. What are your feelings for the shooter? Honestly, I don't feel bad for either of them. They are both crappy people. I thought Alec was a pretty chill person before the shooting. When and how did you find out there was a shooting? How did that make you feel? What events and actions occurred during the event that the media hasn't really picked up on? Were you at significant risk of dying or safe-ish in a room? What did you do? Did you have to defend yourself or others? Did you witness any other interesting events or actions you want to mention? What happened in the aftermath? Were you upset for the rest of the day? How did your parents react? Sorry for potentially bad formatting. Even if I try, I can't format well on mobile for whatever reason. Here I'll try to help with your formatting. When and how did you find out there was a shooting? Well, first I remember hearing 4 to 5 bangs, which I later learned were shots. I heard people running past my classroom screaming. I really didn't even process that it could have been a shooting. Our teacher at the time was talking to me and another kid about a project that we were doing. He got quiet immediately. It confused me at the time, but I think he knew what was happening right then and there. Then we went into lockdown. I remember sitting next to my friend and we were talking about what was happening. Neither of us thought it was a shooting. I tried to look it up on my phone to see if anything was happening. This was about 10 minutes after we went into lockdown and I couldn't find anything. I remember when we heard the SWAT come into the school, my stomach fucking dropped. At that moment I realized that something just went down. We could hear the SWAT clearly as they were just down the hallway. They were mostly just yelling at somebody to put their gun down and shit like that. I was on the brink of tears at that point. How did that make you feel? Extremely anxious and scared. I already have really bad anxiety, and when I figured out that there was a shooting going on, or had gone on, I almost shut down completely. What events and actions occurred during the event that the media hasn't really picked up on? That one of the shooters were trying to enter classrooms. I remember a little bit into the lockdown a kid knocked on our door and said, "Police, open up." I think that was probably one of the shooters. Also, all of my friends that were in classrooms right next to where the shooting started said the same thing. Also, the media didn't pick up on what we did. After we got out of the school, we had to stand in a field while it was raining for almost an hour. It was depressing as hell. I remember hearing that my friend had got shot and I didn't know if she was dead or not. I just shut down at that point, cause I thought she had died. Were you at significant risk of dying or safe-ish in a room? I don't really think so. We were about 4 to 5 classes down from where the shooting started. One of the shooters went around trying to get into classrooms, including mine, but they never got in, so they just started shooting through the walls, which actually hit a few kids. Did you witness any other interesting events or actions you want to mention? I guess what the SWAT team did was kinda interesting. Also, I think the Coast Guard was there. They battering rammed the door to almost every classroom to get in. About 5 officers ran into our darkroom with their flashlights on, yelling, "Everyone put your hands up." One had a shield of sorts and the others were decked out with assault rifles. We then had to run out at full speed with our hands up out of the middle school because one of the shooters was still active / being arrested in the high school. This was the scariest part to me, honestly, even though I wasn't in any true danger. I also thought it was pretty interesting. How did your parents react? My father didn't really react too much. He just said, "How are you doing?" and that was about it. My mom was devastated though. I really felt bad for her. What was the reason for the shooting? The main reason that has been said is that one of the kids, Alec, was bullied for being trans. The thing about STEM is we are all extremely accepting of the LGBTQ community. I'm queer myself, and I don't believe that was the main motive. I'm pretty sure that they were both just mentally unstable and had some other major problems. What do you think your school could have done better before an actual shooting took place? Did the shooter stood out in any way before the shooting? I feel like they could have had better security and better support systems for students. The security before the shooting was minimal. If you looked like a student you could just walk into the school, get a late pass, and boom, you're in. Now they implemented measures against that. Like now you have to give them your name and student number, but they still don't check backpacks, which I'm okay with personally. We also now have multiple private security officers and an SRO, and they patrol the school all day. Before we only had 2 private security officers. Also, the counselors that we had barely even did their job. When I was going through some stuff they pretty much told me at least try to be happy. The school hired more trained / professional counselors and therapists to help students, and so far they seem to be helping some kids a lot, mentally. I'd say the kids didn't really stand out per se. Devon, one of the shooters, would make jokes about school shootings a lot, but most kids would just pass that off as dark humor. Alec was trans, which isn't really a bad thing at our school as we have a large amount of LGBTQ kids here at STEM. But Alec also had a lot of mental issues stemming from his childhood. How do you feel about those maniacs that live in the mass shooter boiling pot of 4chan / poll that claim mass shootings aren't real and that it's all made up as some conspiracy to take America's guns away? Does it make you angry? It'd make me angry. It makes angry as well. Most of those people who post things like that on those websites usually have some sort of underlying mental problems. I personally use 4chan sometimes, but I avoid places like /poll. It's extremely far right from what I have seen. It's a breeding ground of sorts for shooters. But that's just my opinion. People laugh and joke about school shootings. What was your immediate reaction when you realized what was going on? Did you have adrenaline pumping? Were you scared? Was anybody around you crying? Did you hide or run? I have a lot of questions, since I've never talked to anyone who survived a school shooting, but I have lost a friend to it. Sorry to hear about your friend, man. I don't remember anyone crying in my class. For the whole shooting we were just sat up in a corner, but we could hear everything that was going on down the hall between the shooter and SWAT. Also yeah, the adrenaline was pumping really hard. At the time I had a sprained ankle, and when we had to run out of the school I couldn't even feel it. What was your first reaction when you heard the shots? At the time I thought it was a senior prank, since it was almost the end of the year. Like that they set off some fireworks in the parking lot or something. And another question. How do you feel about guns in America? After having survived this traumatizing event, I pretty much hold the same stance. I feel like in America we need much better gun control. I know the shooters only used handguns that they stole from one of their parents in the case of our shooting, but stricter gun control is really needed. The recent shootings in El Paso and Dayton, the shooters used assault weapons. I really do not think any citizen needs anything above a simple handgun for protection. Hey y'all, Reddit Randy here. Thanks for checking out today's video. Don't forget to subscribe and hit notifications for more.